So welcome to our first meeting of the fall. We obviously have some changes with Zoom that aren't where it isn't acting quite perfectly. But we'd like to welcome our members, our families, and our friends to our first meeting of the year. We are always on the second Thursday of the month, our meetings from September to May, except for December. Our meetings this year will always be hybrid. That means you can come join us in person, or you can join us online if you're not able to come in person. At the time being, we will be at the Napa Valley Lutheran Church for our meetings in person. We are looking for a venue in Solano County that stays open late enough and has the electronics that will work for us. So we still have not found a place yet. Our next presentation in October will be a program called Biking for Birds with Dorian Anderson. Dorian actually set the record for the most birds seen in a year on a bicycle. It may be the only record. He biked for a year. I think he went over 18,000 miles, and he saw close to 700 species, somewhere over 600, which on a bike, that's just absolutely amazing. So that will be October's presentation, the second Thursday in October, which is October the 12th. Our November presentation, we're looking forward to as well. It is by Scott Harris, and it's called Raptor Quest. Scott spent part of a year going throughout the 50 or the 48 states, trying to search down every single raptor that's in existence living in the lower 48. And he finally was able to do that. So that should be a really fun program. I've seen some of his photos and they're absolutely amazing. So the second Thursday in November happens to be November 9th. So on another note, fall migration is heating up. And Lucas and I went out to the Yountville's Napa River Reserve this morning, and it was filled with migrants. We had over 12 Western tanagers. We had 3 least flycatchers. We had Townsend's warblers, black-throated gray warblers, yellow warblers, orange-crowned warblers, and a lot of resident birds as well. We had a lot of fun. He started school a little bit late today, but we did have fun. So anyways, the migration is really heating up, and I encourage everyone that has the time and the will to get out to Point Reyes, the Outer Point, or Bodega Bay. They're both incredible migrant traps for rare eastern birds. This spring was the best spring in probably 40 years. More than 20 eastern vagrants were seen on the Outer Point this year, including things like singing Cape May warblers, bay-breasted warblers, black and white warblers. It just, the list goes on and on. Eastern phoebe, eastern kingbird, and it was just spectacular. So we're hoping that the fall will be almost as good. With that in mind, our first monthly field trip of the year is tomorrow, and we are headed to the Bolinas Lagoon. Bolinas is just south of Point Reyes, and it has a little preserve called Pine Gulch that we think might have a lot of vagrants as well. So we'll be birding there, as well as in the lagoon, which is now filling up with shorebirds and waterfowl. It's a wonderful place to go as well, south of Point Reyes along Highway 1. So that trip is full, and it's full because our members tend to respond to the eBlast invitation to field trips within a few hours. So if you want to go on one of our monthly trips, as soon as you get that invitation, respond. And if you have to back out, there's a waiting list and someone can fill your place, but respond as soon as we send it. If you're not on the field trip eBlast list, it's very easy to join. In the left column on our website, it says email. What does it say, Pam? Do you remember? It says email email signups is what it signs. And all you do is check the box for field trips and we'll put your name in the list. You can check the box for general announcements, and that's how you find out about our monthly meetings and all of our activities. So that's our monthly field trip starting tomorrow. If you're not a member, our monthly trips go to members first because they're our member. And because it fills up, if you're not a member, it's very hard to be able to attend. So we encourage everyone to join. It's only $25 for an individual or $35 for a family. The entire family is included for just $35. So come sign up, become a member, and join our monthly field trips. October's trip, just to kind of whet your interest, is going to be to Pinnacles, Pinnacles National Monument, looking for condors and other fun birds that are there in the fall. So sign up, become a member, and get on the e-blast list and join the Pinnacles trip. Okay. Our weekly walks with Andrew Ford. I made a mistake in the newsletter because originally his walk was going to be on a Saturday, and at the last minute he changed it to a Sunday. So his first walk of the year is this Sunday, which is September the 17th. And because the beginner's walk is the following week, he is going to go to American Canyon wetlands. The wetlands are really good for migration, and they're really good for shorebirds and waterfowl, and it's a great place to be in September and October. So his first trip, all of Andrew's walks start at 8 and go until about noon. Bring a picnic lunch if you want, and you can stay on a picnic bench after the walk and enjoy the setting. But this Sunday's walk will be to American Canyon wetlands. Usually Andrew's walks are on Saturday, but he's a field biologist and often taken out of town. So whichever day we can get him, we let him lead the trips. And we're going to do our best to fill in the event that he's out of town this year. We'll see how well we can do. Andrew does better than we do. So then the next beginner bird walk is also to American Canyon. Tom Sliker, our vice president, Carol Boykin, our field trip coordinator, and a new member, Karina Garcia, are leading the beginner field trips. They're all good birders. Their first trip is going to be at American Canyon wetlands the following Sunday, September 24th. Since it's a beginner walk, they start at 9 and go to somewhere around noon. If you haven't birded that much, this is a great way to introduce yourself to birds. American Canyon Wetlands has all kinds of birds that are close up and easy to see. So join Tom, Carol, and Karina on Sunday, the 24th. Our education programs are also warming up. Tammy Saunders is our education coordinator, and she last year saw over 500 students. She went to over 25 schools and delivered her program. She actually met with every student a minimum of 4 times. So it turned out to be over 2,000 contacts with kids. Those kids really enjoy it. And the more we can repeat different programs, the more interest and more involvement they get. We invite them on beginner bird walks that we try to put somewhere near them. And Tammy also leads junior Audubon walks on their early release Wednesdays or on the weekend, so that we can try to encourage those kids that are really excited about birding to come join her and learn more about birds and catch the bug. So that's our education programs. We're also going to be trying to go into more Solano County schools. Tammy lives in Napa. And last year I had the pleasure of working in Sassoon Fairfield schools and just had a ball. And we have some people joining me, notably Jane Hicks, and we're going to be trying to do as many schools as we can in Solano County. If you are a teacher or enjoy presenting and are retired and have the time, we'd love to have more people going to schools. So contact me and or Tammy, but contact me and we'll get you involved in school presentation programs. It's really pretty easy. We have 7 PowerPoints that last about 40 minutes. And then there's a short hands-on activity that's related to the concept that we teach. And it involves the kids for about an hour, part of the time listening and part of the time involved in hands-on activities. For the nesting unit, for example, they actually build a nest. For the bird families unit, they are going to play bird bingo this year and see how many families and species they've learned from the slideshow. So it's a lot of fun. The kids love it. I have a stack of thank you letters literally this high from kids that were in our programs last year. They just really love it. And it's a great way to introduce kids to the wildlife and conservation, which is our primary goal.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
You might remind people that this actually is something we will pay them for to go out and teach in the classes.
We actually have a grant this year. And last year we had to return some of the money because we didn't pay people like me. So if you want to do it, we'll pay you to do it. So come join us and have the fun. It's really fun working with 4th, 5th grade students. They're like 9, 10, 11 years old. They're really good listeners, and the teachers are always in the room with you for support. So come join us and earn some money. All of us need money while we're retired, that's for sure. Lastly, before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to talk a little bit about citizen science. We have so many citizen science projects going on. It's amazing. Tom Sliker, who just spoke up, has just finished our Bluebird box monitoring program with about 30 volunteers that go each week and actually peek into the boxes and see how many eggs and how many young and how many fledglings come out of those nests. I think we had close to 200 fledglings that came out of our boxes last year. It's really rewarding. So if you're interested in something like that, joining a team of people, there's usually 2 or 3 people in every team that go to look at the boxes, contact Tom Sliker. We also, Tom runs a weekly program that monitors birds. It's called Bird Seasons on Mondays at American Canyon Wetlands. And I think it's on Thursdays, Tom, at Benicia Community Park. They're both great walks. One's in Napa, one's in Solano, and they go every single week. And you can contact Tom for more details, but you can join their team and go out every week and learn as much about birds and the seasons of birds, when the birds arrive, when they depart, when they breed, if they're breeders, and so on.
Mm-hmm. It's Wednesday at the community park.
Wednesday at the community park. Thanks, Tom. And lastly, one of the most important citizen science projects is our Christmas bird counts. We have 2 Christmas bird counts, one in Benicia and one in Angan. Robin Leong, who was a president way back, I think in the 70s, he probably doesn't want to admit that, but he has been running the Benicia bird count since then, and he has decided he needs to retire. So we are looking for someone to coordinate the Benicia Christmas bird count. If you're good at organizing people and organizing activities, please contact me. We're desperate to find someone to take over for Robin. So thank you very much. If you step forward, I'll thank you before you do it. Finally, I'd like to introduce our speakers yes. Yeah, Robin wants to do a quick little plug. So just come on up here, Robin. Take my seat. Quick little plug, because the Hamiltons have it.
Yeah, it's not a plug, but it's a plea. It's a plea for those that live in Suisun and Fairfield. I don't know if you've been reading the paper about the Flannery Associates. They planned 3 cities in that area north of Highway 12 and abutting Travis Air Force Base. So we need people to be active, and especially those that know their supervisors, to make sure that their supervisors are in on what we feel. And I've written a note of all the endangered species and the species of concern. So we need to tell them that that area has all these things. Today I was at a Solano County Parks and Recreation Commission. And, you know, we might be able to tell if it fails and the development happens, we might be able to lay away a certain amount of park space where these birds are. You know, there's the mountain plovers, there's a Swainson hawk, there's burrowing owls, there's tricolored blackbirds. These are all important birds for us to see and keep. So if you live in Fairfield and Suisun, and those that live out in Rio Vista and stuff, we need to contact your supervisors to make sure they know what is at stake.
Buy it up.
Okay?
Should have been for sale.
Yeah.
All right.
Great, thank you,
Thanks.
Robin. We actually will be sending out information on this topic in the near future. Robin was one of our conservation advocates, and he wants to retire from that too. So we're searching for a conservation advocate, someone who loves to get involved in issues in our area. It's local area issues. What he was talking about are 3 cities that are proposed to be built on family, long-term family farms in the south of Dixon, California. And it's the place where all birders like to go because there's so many endangered species in that area. And he mentioned them, things like burrowing owls, Swainson's hawks, mountain plovers, probably the most endangered, as well as tricolored blackbirds that are only found in California. And there's only a few breeding grounds for tricolored blackbirds, and 2 or 3 of them are in the area that they plan to develop. So it's a very important cause, and we hope that you'll get involved in that. So tonight's presentation is.
And Mark,
Yes.
before you do the presentation, can you ask people to turn off their audio, to mute
Yes.
themselves?
Yeah, if anyone has their audio on, can you please do us a favor and mute it? For some reason, they keep changing the interface, and we can't find the button to mute everybody. It's somewhere in here. Maybe I found it now. Let's see. Boom. Nope, I still haven't found it. So they keep changing where it's located, and we haven't been able to find it. So please mute yourself, and that way there won't be any echoing during the presentation. So our presenters are our friends. They're members of Napa Solano Audubon. They participate in all kinds of activities with Napa Solano, including the Christmas bird count. And they're not unknown to all of us. So they presented last year. Tonight's program will feature an African safari they took in 2017, mostly to Kruger National Park in South Africa, but also to the Sani Pass, Cape Town, and places in between. They birded from the ocean shores of the Atlantic to the Indian, and they went as high up as 9,436 feet in search of birds. They also spent part of a day in a country I had to look up because I hadn't heard of it. It's called Lesotho, which is actually surrounded by South Africa. So without further ado, we will turn the program over to David and Denise. I'm going to share their screen right now, and so you should see their program. We're hoping it all works. Okay. Okay.
All right, we're working out 2 more details right here. I think we're okay. Before we begin, just a shout out to Ron and Vi Barklow up there on the Zoom screen. It's good to see you after so many years. Okay, off we go. How many of you have been to Africa? Yeah, okay. And this will be a revisit.
Hands up.
All right.
People, you need to mute if you're still not muted, please. Okay, so we don't spend all night here. Our plan was to leave on an early flight from San Francisco on September 13th, fly to Atlanta, Georgia, and arrive in Johannesburg, South Africa on September 14th, and have a free day before our tour starts. But about 3 hours into the 9-hour flight from Atlanta to South Africa, David noticed on the flight progress screen that our plane was heading back to Atlanta. Is this a mistake, we asked? The result of electromagnetic interference with the flight screen to the Bermuda Triangle over which we were flying? No, it was not. The flight crew was keeping things hushed up, but a while later, the pilot came on the intercom and said there was engine trouble and it was still too far to South Africa to go. So we returned to Atlanta.
Fast forward to the afternoon of September 14th, which 7 years ago today. We boarded the same plane, fixed, we were told.
I
Got to the
can't
Bermuda
hear.
Triangle.
I have to get upstairs and get.
To make a
Oh.
long story short, we returned to Atlanta and then took off again in a
Sure.
different plane at 4 o'clock in the morning on September 15th. And
You
made
got
it
the
to
volume all the way up?
Johannesburg at 1:30
You got the
a.m.
volume all the way up? Hello, Ann Sorello, can you turn your mic mute off? Can you mute, please? And Linda V, can you mute, please?
I
Thank
have to go get your.
I'm working on muting someone. That's us, that's not her. Okay, so they took us back to Atlanta the second time. And on September 15th at 4 in the morning, we took off on our third try and made it to Johannesburg at 1:30 a.m. on September 16th. So fortunately, we planned an extra day, just in case. We made it to our motel at 2:30 a.m. and we're told that the tour would start with breakfast at 4:45 a.m. So we dropped on our beds fully clothed for a bit of rest, and we're out to meet our group on time, much to their surprise. Finally, our trip begins. But before we start, here are some South African facts. The Republic of South Africa is the southernmost country in Africa, situated in the temperate latitudes and subtropics. South Africa covers an area greater than 470,000 square miles, which is larger than Texas, but smaller than Alaska. It has 1,739 miles of coastline, and as was mentioned, completely surrounds the country of Lesotho. With over 60 million people, the country is the world's 24th most populous nation. South Africa's major exports include gold, diamonds, wines, iron ore, platinum, non-ferrous metals, electronics, manufactured equipment, motor vehicles, fruits, and various agricultural foodstuffs. It is a region of high biodiversity, ranked 6th out of the world's 17 megadiverse countries, and is rated among the top 10 for plant species diversity and 3rd for marine endemism. Almost 2/3 of South Africa's 20,400 plus plant species, about 1/2 of the species of reptiles, amphibians, butterflies, and freshwater fish, about 40% of the 10,000 marine animal species are endemic. South Africa has 876 plus species of birds, an estimated 67,000 animal species, which includes about 3,000 mammals. 300 mammals, which is, kind of why we went.
So we went with the Rockjumper Tour Company. Would highly recommend these folks. Here is a map of South Africa. And this map here shows in the red dots the spots that we went to on our tour.
Our first day at early morning, we headed to the Zagpoelsdrift Road north of Pretoria, which is a famous birding hotspot located in the rich acacia bushveld, a patch of arid savanna with deciduous trees and an understory of grass next to a wetland. We ended up that day seeing around 80 species of birds, many of which we would not encounter again on the tour because we wouldn't be in habitat like this again. We thought that was not bad for less than 2 hours sleep.
So some of the birds that we did see in this area. So, yeah, we see a lot of birds, but we only get so many pictures. So we just got some pictures. So we saw the helmeted guinea fowl, the southern red-billed hornbill, the gray go-away bird, which its name comes from its alarm call. And this is it.
Can you hear that? Go away, go away.
And this is the crimson-breasted shrike, which was one of the most sought-after birds in this area. This is the southern fiscal, which is a member of the shrike family. This is the rufous-naped lark. Forked-tailed drongo. Chestnut-vented warbler. Southern double-collared sunbird, and they make up for the lack of hummingbirds in the old world. They have brilliant iridescence and saturated colors and thin decurved bills. And they'll sometimes hover in front of a nectar-bearing flowers, but never like our hummingbirds can do.
These are red-billed quelleas, which are native to sub-Saharan Africa and are considered to be the most numerous bird in the world, with an estimated population of over 1.5 billion with a B birds. Sometimes they are called Africa's feathered locusts, and they're a serious pest of cereal crops, but attempts to reduce population numbers have pretty much failed so far. Consequently, management is at present directed at removing just those flocks that are likely to attack vulnerable fields. The southern masked weaver, one of several birds in the weaver family that we saw. Most of the weavers in Africa nest in colonies. And as you might guess from their name, their nests are intricately woven of reeds, palms, or grasses. And how a bird can do that with its bill has always been a puzzle to me.
So on the second day of our tour, we arrived at Kruger National Park, which became a national park in 1926. It covers 6.9 million acres, which is a little bit larger than the state of Massachusetts, and is covered by a mixture of acacia and grassland savanna. This is our tour guide, Greg de Klerk, who's standing in front of the animal sightings board that's at Kruger. And here are our tour mates, Bill and Bonnie Borsa from Maryland. This is our local park guide and driver, Dirk, who is an excellent guide in every way.
Yeah. We drove through the park to our lodging at the Satara Rest Camp, which is here. We had to be there no later than 6 p.m. Since the gate is locked for safety overnight and then reopened at 6 a.m. And if you're not inside on time, they might make you leave the park, or they might even ban you from the park for life, or so they said. Other rules while in the park: you must remain in your vehicle at all times unless you're in a designated area, and vehicle doors must be kept shut, and no part of the body may be hanging out of the window. This is the room we had in there, very basic but comfortable. And here's the roomy safari vehicle for our 2 guides and the 4 of us. If you were here for our Ecuador tour, you remember we ended up being the only 2 people on that tour. Here we ended up being only a group of 4 in a vehicle that would have seated 10 or 12 easily, like this, for example. And so we felt pretty fortunate that we were where we were.
So some of the mammals that we saw on our tour were the African elephant, and there are about 28,000 of them in Kruger. And this is the plains zebra, which our guide called them zebras, so now we also want to call them zebras. And there's about 33,000 of them in the park. And giraffes. They can stand up to 18 feet tall, and they were just so fun to see.
Just the one.
Was there? Did we not
Yeah.
see?
And they saw us.
Common wildebeest.
We weren't there for migration, but when we were at this point in the tour, these three are three of about 120 of them that ran across the road in front of us, and we had to sit there waiting for them to go by.
These are impalas, and they've been referred to as the McDonald's of the bush, as they're the most common prey for predators. With well over 100,000 of them can be found in the park. Just beautiful. Another kind of antelope is the greater kudu. And then the smaller waterbuck.
It was nice because all the antelopes had different antlers and different markings. And so you got to be able to tell them apart, not like some of those birds where you never know what you're looking at. Here's a black-backed jackal. It was the only one we saw on the tour. And we ran into spotted hyenas, including a family of them. The hyena has one of the strongest bites in the animal kingdom, with a bite strength of over 1,100 pounds per square inch. And here he's using his strength to crush that little piece of straw. Common warthog, which to me is just a fascinating looking animal. And here he's being attended to by a red-billed oxpecker. Could climb all over the mammals and just poke their bills into any kind of opening there was to see what they could find. These are African buffalo, which have also been known as the Black Death or the Widowmaker, names given because of their aggressive nature. Some people consider the buffalo to be the most dangerous of all the animals in Africa. And then the white rhinoceros. And there's about 16,000 of these left in the wild. The black rhinoceros, you know, is almost functionally extinct in Africa. With continued habitat loss and ongoing poaching, these are also classified as near threatened.
And then we've got to see lions. Dirk, our driver, got word that over the radio that there was a zebra kill being eaten by 15 lions, so he raced us to the spot. And then not more than 40 feet off the road was a zebra ribcage and lions, some lounging about with bloated, well-fed stomachs, and some still munching on a leg.
And some who looked a little hungry still.
And then here was the big male with its pink blood-tinged mane. That was the center of it all. Pretty gruesome, but pretty interesting.
And then we were fortunate to see leopards. At one point on our drive, Bill, our tour mate, called out from the back of the vehicle, "Lion!" And so the vehicle quickly came to a stop and backed up to reveal there at the side of the road a scrub hare. And we all got a good laugh at Bill's expense until he said, "No, a little farther back." And so the driver backed up a little further and we saw not lions, but two leopards next to a couple of bushes right next to the road. They pretty much ignored us, moved around a bit, attempted to mate right then and there in front of us. Then the poor scrub hare, which was there, tried to make a quick exit, and the male leopard chased it toward the female, who put out a paw and grabbed it, and then trotted off with it between its jaws for a little snack. a hush grew in our vehicle as both our guides were almost in tears and out of their minds with excitement. To see copulation and a kill, they kept saying. Then we got a lecture from our leader about leopard sex and anatomy. We think we probably won't have an experience like that again.
So some of the other animals that we saw at Kruger were the chakma baboons. The vervet, which is a small black-faced monkey that's common in East Africa. And vervets living near areas inhabited by people can become pests, and they steal food and other items and raid crops. So yeah, this sign was right outside our cabin about locking our door before we walked out of it. And so this leads to the heavy annual slaughter by poison, traps, and guns. And you can see this guy going into the trash cans.
Here under the eaves of a building, we saw the only bats we had for our trip, Wahlberg's epauletted fruit bat, which eat mainly fruit. Very good. And then each day we would drive around the park, and here's this view from one of the bridges that we were allowed to stop on and get out of the vehicle. Kind of an expansive view of a river area.
And so some of the birds we saw was the giant kingfisher, which is the largest kingfisher in South Africa, which is between about 16 to 18 inches. And comparison, our belted kingfisher is 11 to 14 inches. And here is black crake. Water thickney. Wood sandpiper. Which we did here. Yes, we did. We did. Three-banded plover. And a saddle-billed stork.
And there were also several blinds we could visit. Here's the view from one of them. They often had a handful of water birds and sometimes Nile crocodiles. This is the largest freshwater predator in Africa. On the average, they're 16 to 20 feet long and weigh between 500 and 1,600 pounds. And it's one of the most dangerous species of crocodile and is responsible for hundreds of human deaths every year. And remember the hyena with a bite force of 1,100 pounds per square inch. The Nile crocodile has a bite force of 3,000 pounds per square inch. This is a gray heron. And a Goliath heron, which is somewhat larger than our great blue heron. And a bird that we saw just about everywhere, the Hadada ibis, which is also named for its call, which sounds like Hadada, Hadada, Hadada. You can hear it flying over off in the distance. And the African darter.
A few more birds we saw at Kruger was the ostrich, which are the heaviest of the living birds and also the fastest on land, being able to run more than 40 miles per hour.
And our driver said he was more afraid of ostriches than he was of the buffalo, that they could really do you damage.
Here is a hammerkop, one of those strange looking birds that you look at in the book and you go, I want to see that bird. So it was fun to see it. And this is its nest. It's a elaborate large stick nest with a central chamber that's usually situated in a fork of a tree. We also saw harlequin quail, double-banded sand grouse, Swenson spur fowl. Here's a marabou stork. And then here's a marabou stork with a smaller hooded vulture,
The one in the lower right-hand corner.
which is listed as critically endangered since 2015. And they're feasting on a carcass of a probable water buffalo. Other vultures we saw were the black-backed vulture.
White-back.
Oh, sorry, white-backed. Here's the lappet-faced vulture. A Martial eagle. Wahlberg's eagle. And the Bataleur, which is diagnostic wing shape and short tail. As you can see, the curved wing tips.
And this is a Cory bustard, which is Africa's heaviest flying bird. Males can weigh up to 40 pounds or more. There's a bustard in Spain, which is very similar to this one and about the same size. Debate if one is a little bit bigger than the other. Red-crested bustard. Purple-crested turaco. Turacos include some of the most intensely and interestingly colored birds, whose feathers contain a distinctive set of pigments known in no other birds. Klaus's cuckoo. A white-browed kukkel. The rufous-crowned roller. And the lilac-breasted roller. Rollers are named because of the acrobatic display flights that they perform, in which they dive rapidly toward the ground with wings and body rolling back and forth, which we didn't see, but we heard about. Here are brown-hooded kingfishers. One of my favorites, the African hoopoe, which will go up, like a hooded merganser. And then the ground hornbill, which some people have said is like a strange combination of a toucan and a turkey. They're large terrestrial hornbills found in the savannas of sub-Saharan Africa. They live in small groups. They're the largest cooperatively breeding birds, and they are primarily carnivorous. And they have eyelashes which would make a movie star jealous. This African gray hornbill, the white-crested helmet shrike, a magpie shrike, a southern black tit, and then the starling family, lots of starlings in Africa. This is the red-winged starling, well named. The Cape starling, and the greater blue-eared starling. And also the bearded scrub robin, another sunbird, the scarlet-chested sunbird, the gray-winged petilia, and the southern cordon bleu. A lot of the African names have a French twist to them, like Bataleur and the cordon bleu, because of the original naturalists who did the exploration there.
So a couple of the flowers we saw blooming were the impala lily. And then these are the flowers that are on the sausage tree. So no sausages hanging from the tree yet. So after Kruger, we headed over to Walkerstrom, and we stayed at the Wetlands Country House. And here is our fancy room. We did not suffer on rooms on this trip. So this is the highlands, the high altitude grasslands that are near the city of Walkerstrom. Some of the birds we saw there was the orange-throated longclaw, yellow-breasted pipit, Botha's lark, which is one of the main target species for this area. It's listed as endangered since it has a restricted range species only present in the South African grasslands. And then we got to see meerkats. While our guides were driving around in circles looking for a Rudd's lark, which was another localized bird of the grasslands, the four of us just stood outside and watched a family of meerkats, and we're really amused. Our guides never found the lark, but we were so happy just to see the meerkats because these are the only ones we did see on the trip.
This is part of the Walkerstrom wetlands, which are just outside of town, about 24,000 acres in size and designated as an important bird and biodiversity area. Some of the birds of the wetlands included the yellow-billed duck, the African swamp hen, the blacksmith lapwing, Levolance cisticola, which is one of the prettier birds in this family of about 50 mostly little brown birds. After that, our next destination was Mkuzi, where we stayed at the Umkumbi Lodge. And this is a picture of the open air dining hall there. And here is our comfortable room. After dinner that night, we heard a racket in the nearby trees, which caught our attention. And luckily we had our headlamps on, and we discovered two bush babies, otherwise known as thick-tailed greater galagos, chasing each other through the trees, which we thought was a great way to finish off the day. And full disclosure, this is not our picture. But at the lodge, Denise saw her 2000th life bird, an African white-eye.
And then the next day at Mkuzi, David got his 2000th life bird, Narina trogon, which I think is a really big upgrade compared to my
So all the splits and lump, who knows what the 2000th bird really was at this point.
So here is the Mkuzi Game Reserve. It covers 150 square miles and was proclaimed a protected area in 1912. It has a diversity of natural habitats, which includes sand forest, which is thought to be a relic of the coastal dune forests, which have been separated from the ocean for more than 1 million years.
And here is the umbrella thorn, which is the acacia tree we all recognize in Africa. But now you should know this. While for more than 2.5 centuries, Africa has been home to acacia trees, with the first described in 1753, there is no longer an acacia tree anywhere in Africa. Why do you ask? Well, in 2003, the nomenclature section of the International Botanical Congress in Vienna met, and without much of any official consultation with any African, South American, or Asian citizens, the Australians quietly sneaked in under the radar to claim the generic name acacia just for their own waddles. So Africa's acacias were renamed Senegalias. Fast forward to 2023, the debate still rages on, while the common name acacia continues to be used by most non-scientists in Africa. Along with the acacias, these are fever trees. The common name fever tree comes from its tendency to grow in swampy areas where mosquitoes live, and has kind of a yellow, powdery bark. Early European settlers in the region discovered that when they slept under these trees, that they would contract malarial fever. And so they made the logical leap that it was the tree's fault, not knowing that that was a disease carried by the mosquitoes, and hence the name fever tree.
So some of the birds we saw at Mkuzi was the chin spot batis, the little bee eater, southern brown-throated weaver, crested guinea fowl. And we had this strange feeling when we had seen this bird before, so we looked it up when we got home, and lo and behold, this is like, okay.
So from there, we continued on to St. Lucia, which is truly the home to the hippo. The area is frequented by approximately 800 hippos, the largest population in South Africa, and they can often be seen even walking around the town. But usually you go on a boat, and here are some hippo watchers on the tour boat watching hippos in the river delta.
I've heard that hippos are pretty dangerous.
Yeah. They
Yes.
pretty much all are. Okay, we stayed at the Kingfisher Lodge, which welcomed us with this sign. Management has taken all responsible steps to ensure that these premises are safe. However, Kingfisher Lodge cannot be held responsible for theft, loss or damage to property, injuries, death to any person whatsoever entering these premises. Enjoy your stay. Despite the warnings, we did not suffer while we were here. Here's the room we had there.
I think this was the honeymoon suite, I think, is what it was called.
And
Keep your door locked.
the whole room, we didn't show you all the pictures, but the whole room
Oh.
was just full of African artwork, wood carvings and paintings. It was just gorgeous. We did go out in the evening, but we didn't see any hippos, but we did see an African wood owl.
Much better than a hippo.
From there, we went to Isangaliso Wetlands Park. This is South Africa's third largest protected area of 810,000 acres, situated along 170 miles of Indian Ocean coastline.
And so two of the birds we saw here was the African fish eagle. And colored pratnicals. And then while driving around the park, every so often, a huge bug would hit the windshield, almost like a small rock striking. So you know, like when a rock comes at you and you duck. Well, we kept ducking and we found out they were actually dung beetles that were hitting the windshield. So our driver was kind enough to pull over to some,
Must be you, sorry.
my mouth.
Oh, it's your mouse. It
Sorry.
must be you.
So he pulled over some piles of dung, and for about the next 20 minutes or so, we just sat there mesmerized watching the beetles rolling around balls of dung. So there's the beetles. And let's see. And they push with the hind legs. But just amazing. So here is a view of the Indian Ocean from the park.
Windy.
And several more birds we saw over the next few days. That includes the green twin spot. Another weaver, the Cape weaver. A spotted ground thrush. Bronze mannequin. An African dusky brown flycatcher.
And this is the African broadbill. It's about the size of an oak titmouse. Our guide found this bird for us by listening for the strange mechanical sound its wings make in its display flight. And then we heard it too as we watched this bird take off several times, fly in a small circle, and then land back again where it started. Researchers recently discovered that the loud wing song is caused by the aeroelastic flutter of medial primary wing feathers, which is similar to flight sounds made by some hummingbirds and snipe. Another Turako, the Kanisna Turako, which is a real beauty. the long-crested eagle, and gray-crowned cranes.
Our tour included a day trip to the Drakensberg Mountains and up the Sani Pass Road, which is very unique area of South Africa. And it was so cold up there, we had every layer on most of the day.
But the group that went after us, we were told, ran into snow, so we felt fortunate.
So it's just beautiful. And the hillsides had, some of the hillsides were covered with red Watsonia, which if you see around town, or some people, we'd have them in our yard. And this is a malachite sunbird up at the top corner. Gurney sugarbird was also at the Watsonia, but they prefer the proteas, but they were not in bloom at the time. And here is a Cape rock thrush you saw up there. Buff streak chat.
Here's what a portion of the lower road looks like. Didn't really expect to find this kind of landscape in South Africa, so it was interesting. We had to stop at the South African border station and present our passports and get them stamped because 8 kilometers up the road, the Kingdom of Lesotho was, and we had to stop at their border station also and get approval for entry. The road between the two stations is famous for its switchbacks and elevation gain. At some points, the road has a 16% grade. It was often more large rocks than road, but we had special drivers for this day, and they take tourists, not just birders, up the road almost every day. So fortunately, they knew the road very well. This is a Drakensberg crag lizard. And here a Slogget's Vlei rat, an ice rat, which is endemic to southern Africa. It inhabits rocky habitats and alpine grassland at altitudes above 6,600 feet.
Looks like a piker.
We thought it looked like a little old man with a backpack on the way he was standing, but yeah, pika is probably a similar species.
And this is the Drakensberg Rockjumper, which our tour company is named after. And these are ground woodpeckers. And then the hole that you can see down here is where they nest in.
And now, because inquiring minds want to know, a few facts about Lesotho. Lesotho is a high altitude kingdom with over 80% of the country lying above 5,900 feet. Its lowest point is 4,593 feet, which makes it, are you ready? The highest low point of any country in the world. Lesotho is crisscrossed by a network of rivers and mountain ranges, which include the 11,424-foot peak of Tambana Nyalanyana, the highest mountain in southern Africa. Covers an area of 11,720 square miles, a bit smaller than Maryland. Its population is somewhat over 2 million, and you won't guess that from the pictures we have of it because we only went in a little ways. If you go in farther, you come to the capital city, which is a city of 1 million or more inhabitants, and that's where most people are. So, but it's a populated country. The economy is based on agriculture, livestock, manufacturing, and mining, but waters and diamonds are Lesotho's only significant natural resources. Lesotho has 339 bird species, of which I think we saw 16, 17 reptile species, and 60 endemic mammal species. Welcome. And here's the view from the top of the pass. South Africa in the fog and Lesotho in the sun. And at the top is the Sani Mountain Lodge, which is the highest pub in Africa at an elevation of, translate the meters, 9,430 feet above sea level. So that's the highest beer I've ever drunk. And it is windy up there. No joke, it would pull the doors right off your car if you let it. This is a native Basutu shepherd and some sheep. And the shepherd's village. See, not 2 million people there. They live elsewhere. But Lesotho does have a tarred road, which was built and paid for by China as part of its international economic aid and development policy. And according to our tour guides, built with problems caused by the Chinese workers' disregard of local customs and land use regulations. Add to that questions about how well the road will hold up in the frigid winters, especially with no local budget for road maintenance. So our guide was skeptical that it would be a tarred road for long.
A couple of the birds we saw there was the Cape bunting and the southern bald ibis. Really looks like he's got a plastic skull cap on him.
It still startles me to find ibis at 9,000 feet. They're there in Ecuador too, at that elevation, so.
So this ends the main tour, and we said our goodbyes to Bonnie and Bill, and then began a shorter tour extension with 4 new traveling companions, where we flew cross-country from Durban to Cape Town with its landmark Table Mountain in the background. The South African-based photographer Johnny Miller says, literally from the minute you land in Cape Town, you are surrounded by tin shacks, which you have to drive past for about 10 minutes until you reach the more affluent suburbs where the privileged people live. And so this is just some of the shacks that we saw when we were driving through there.
Our first stop here was at Kirstenbosch Botanical Garden, which is a beautiful garden filled with native plants. And here are some of the proteas that were in bloom. Beautiful proteas.
Some of the birds we saw there was the Cape robin chat, the Cape bulbul, the Cape sugarbird, the Swee waxbill. And while staying in Cape Town, we stayed at Simonstown, which is the southernmost village within the greater Cape Town area, at the Whale View Manor. Again, not shabby. And so this was the view we had from our room. And nearby was a stony, oops, how did I get all the way over there?
That's what comes up next.
Oh, sorry.
So a target bird here is the Cape Rockjumper. They prefer steep slopes with plenty of large boulders on which they can perch to keep an eye out for predators and also keep an eye out for bird watchers. After much climbing and effort up the hill, we actually found one, so that was good. Yeah.
So then nearby was the Stony Point with its African penguin colony, which were formerly known as the jackass penguins because of their braying call.
It was tempting.
There was a lot of penguins and
There's a
bear.
little boardwalk that you can go out, and the penguins are just right on either side of you.
There are also Cape cormorants nesting there. And under some of the rocks, we saw a Cape iris, which is native to South Africa and is most closely related to the elephant. Don't ask me why.
Check the DNA.
And here's a Cape girdled lizard. We were supposed to go on a pelagic trip, which I wouldn't have done anyway, but this is why it was canceled. They said about half of the trips down here on the Cape are canceled. The water is just so rough.
Did you?
I was kind of glad we didn't, because I wouldn't have gone anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, there's some good stuff out there.
yeah.
We went up the coast a little bit from Cape Town to the West Coast National Park and the Langabon Lagoon to see more water birds. And here's part of the lagoon. And of course, one of the best spots to go is Cape Town Strandfontein Water Treatment Works, because as you know, the sewage ponds are always the best place to go. Some of the water birds that we saw there included the little grebe, the lesser flamingo, the greater flamingo, Kitlitz's plover, the black-winged stilt, Hartlaub's gull, great crested terns, along with Caspian terns, and a sandwich tern, which is rumored to be a different species than the North American sandwich tern. There's some dispute about that, so we may get another bird out of this.
A few other birds we saw in the area was the southern black bustard, the blue cranes, which are the national birds of South Africa. And these are actually their wings and not tail feathers that you see. Rock kestrels that were nesting. White-throated swallows. And black-headed canary.
Our last day of our trip was to the Great Karoo, which is a semi-desert shrubland with extensive areas of rocky outcrops, limited grass cover, little permanent surface water except where there are man-made dams, and extreme temperatures of heat and cold. I joke that Karoo was Afrikaans for Nevada.
So you can see the plants here, and this are the local plant, which is known as butterboom or butterbush, that grows in the rocky outcrops of the Karoo. And it's a succulent plant that belongs to the same family as our jade plant. Birding was a bit of a struggle here today because, as we wrote in our journal, it was windy again, maybe the worst wind of the trip, which is saying a lot since we had a lot of wind on our trip. But we did manage to see a few birds and even got to take a picture of this, of Karoo bustard.
So a fun respite from the wind and dust was a stop at the Tankwa Podstall, which is an interesting roadside shop which advertises itself as being somewhere between nothing and nowhere out on the Karoo. We marveled at the weird collection of souvenirs and other necessary items they had for sale, because you never know when you're going to need a ukulele. Two from our group decided to sample their famous homemade ginger beer, an experience which, if you do it right, includes a process of opening the bottle in a special way which takes about 15 minutes, and which they reported was probably not ultimately worth the effort. What was worth the effort was the tour itself, which resulted in our seeing 440 species of birds, 385 of which were lifers for us, more than 50 species of amazing mammals, plus a dozen reptiles and dung beetles too, and the opportunity to see many of the scenic wonders of this special country and continent. And remember our flight snafu at the beginning of the trip. Well, Delta reimbursed us for the entire round trip airfare from San Francisco to Johannesburg and back, along with the lodging cost for the one night in Johannesburg that we missed. So shout out to Delta. So all that's left to say is adieu, adieu from the great Karoo. The end. Questions?
I was really enthralled with your photography. It was great. And it's a while back, so what kind of camera did you use?
Yeah,
It's just the same little one we've got now.
it's a little, it's a bridge camera. It's a digital, single piece with a 65 millimeter zoom lens, which is, pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not a digital zoom, it's glass, so you get
Yeah,
clear
optical,
picture,
yeah.
optical zoom. But it's just a little, put over your shoulder,
Oh,
carry it
that's great.
around.
We're
Yeah.
showing you the good pictures and not the bad
Yeah,
pictures.
right.
So, yeah,
Out of 10,000
We
pictures,
literally
you
have
got
10,000 and we didn't see all of them.
yeah.
I'm impressed that you also remember the names of the birds.
That's why that's why we put them on there and yeah, yeah.
Denise's job is to spend the 2 months before the program, looking them all up again, and writing down the names.
But this trip was very different from mine.
Yeah,
Ours, just one trip and we didn't have it.
Yeah, we figured since we probably never would go again, that's why we took the extension. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And you have wine, Catherine?
Oh, gosh, the food and
Yeah.
everything was
You wanna
just,
put it back
food
in?
was just
No,
great.
it's
Yeah.
not.
So yeah, he had wine. Yeah.
Did you got their question for the
Yeah.
audience? When you went to the top of that country,
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
you see the bird that you went for, which was this big, it was one of the biggest birds around. Can't remember the name.
Well,
The-
Lammergeier is
Yeah,
up there, which is
yes.
the bearded vulture. And
Yeah.
yes, we did. They had a nesting location and there was a young in the nest and the adult flew out and went right over our
That was
heads.
the
and-
main reason for going.
Yeah.
But
They,
we
you
saw
know,
this in
the tour
Spain.
guides don't tell you in advance what the main reasons are for what you're doing right now, because then if they don't see it, you feel like you've been cheated.
Ours too.
And so, we'd find on our tours, we'd say, well, what are we gonna see today? And they'd say, oh, we'll see what we see. And they were very close-lipped about,
But we did see those in Spain before that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very impressive.
Any questions from the Zoom audience?
Online community?
You'll have to unmute yourself to be heard.
Oh, that's okay. They don't.
I think we're in a mode where they would come up.
They're probably all sleeping already. We'll put 'em to sleep already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. What time of year were you there?
We were there from September 16th till the first couple days of October. So right about now, we were in fact right now headed to the airport, I think, on the 14th of September.
Oh, we're sitting-
If you had it to do again, would you go about the same time?
I think there's advantages and disadvantages. This is sort of the ending of the dry season, which meant we didn't have to deal with very much rain. There were a couple of storms that came through. And the water that's been on the landscape has been reduced to lesser places. So I think the animals tend to be more predictably where they're going to be. The landscape is not as green as it might be. Kruger was really brown.
But they've had some drought there too.
But
so-
I think on the balance, and we didn't have to deal with mosquitoes. The people
Yeah.
who were with us were taking malarial drugs, and we had done enough reading and had been reassured that we weren't going to run into any issues, that we didn't take the malarial drugs. And we never saw a single mosquito. In fact, I
Huh.
think dung beetles were about the only bug we saw the whole time we were there. So I think on the balance, it was a good time to travel. I,
Cool.
I can't compare it to what it was like. I don't know, Robin, do you remember the time of year you were there?
About the same time, I remember seeing 60 mammals and like 5 species of mongoose. You guys saw mongoose?
Yes,
We did,
yeah.
maybe only 3. The Rockjumper runs tours pretty much all year round there. They're actually a South African-based company, so they, know the landscape there. But I think you can sign up for just about any time. I think there's 8 tours during the course of the year that they run. So they seem to think that any time of year is worth the effort.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Great presentation.
Rockjumper, because that's a specialty. Anything in Africa, they know it.
Can you talk about the sunbirds? Just in terms of variety and behavior, anything of that nature?
The book, but there's
Yeah.
quite a few, yeah. I don't know why we did not bring our book with us, but yeah, there was quite a few species of sunbirds there, and what was your question about them?
About behavior and all.
Well, they do go for the nectar and things, and I'm sorry, I can't tell you more.
I think there were probably, I'm just guessing off the top of my head, that we saw 8 to 12 different kinds of sunbirds. Our guide's favorite was the southern double-collared sunbird, because he could say that really fast and not get his tongue tied, and I still can't. But there's malachite sunbird, and there was every different area had a different sunbird there. Like with our, if you go to Central or South America, everywhere you go, it's a different suite of hummingbirds. And there it was not as numerous as the hummingbirds, but a good variety.
Thank you.
Denise is gonna Google it and see
No,
if she
I
can add
can't.
anything else.
I'm not online, so forget it. Not so.
Hey, David and Denise, it's good to see you. This is Ron Barklow here.
Hi,
We've
Hi,
been,
Ron, good
Ron.
to see you.
Good to see you.
yeah, we're going to try and contact you earlier. We've been in Rio Vista, living here for about 12 years now.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, so you really need to go after that new.
the new town.
The new town.
Oh, we involve a lot of other things too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good work. And I
Still
see I
doing
want to get
burrowing
with
owl
Mark.
surveys?
Pardon?
Still doing burrowing owl surveys?
No, there are not too many around. I
Yeah.
got some video I like to get with Mark. Where can I get my cam recorder real travel stuff you like to use in your for schools? I need to convert the VCRs into CDs. So
Oh, yeah.
where I work for money mostly out of the Bay Bridge. Got ones on Peregrine falcons.
Oh,
Removing the egg from UC Santa Cruz Predator Bird Research Group and stuff.
uh-huh.
So we're
Ron
doing
and
other
his
surveys
wife
around
and I
here.
were, members of Ohlone Audubon in
Yeah.
Hayward area when we lived down there, so
So Mark needs to
got
do
to
it.
know them
Well,
for a long
I'd like
time.
to thank everyone for coming tonight. I hope everyone was able to receive our newsletter and was able to enjoy that. We have 3 newsletters a year, so our next one will be coming out in November, and then we have one in March. Don't miss out on the fun field trips that we have. Remember, Andrew Ford is leading his this Sunday at 8 o'clock at American Canyon Wetlands, and the following Sunday at 9, Tom Slaker and Karina Garcia are leading a beginner's walk there. Andrew will have another walk next weekend as well somewhere else, so stay tuned for the e-blast for that. Also stay tuned for information that we put out on conservation issues, because definitely the building, the land that has been purchased in Solano County very surreptitiously by a very small group of very wealthy people to try to build a city there and develop that land is on prime wildlife habitat. And it would be a shame to see that area, which has been family farm for generations. It would be very sad to see that land disappear. So We will be putting out some information on that before too long. Anything else for the good of the order? Our next meeting is October 9th, and it's birding by bicycle, big year on the bicycle, and it should be really entertaining. So don't miss out. At this point, we will be back at Napa Valley Lutheran Church, unless we find a place in Solano County that has Wi-Fi connections and is open until 9. Okay, so thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you in the near future. And don't forget, this is fall migration at its prime right now. It's a great time to get out, especially to the coast. Go up to Bodega, go up to Russian Gulch and the Jenner area. And the hawks are going to be coming through shortly at the headlands. And one of my favorite hawks to see, and the target date is September 28th. I can remember that because it's my father's birthday, is the broad-winged hawk. They come through for about 5 days, right around September 28th. And if you go to Hawk Hill, you're likely to see them. Some come nearby and some are in the distance. So enjoy that. It's a fun time being up above the Golden Gate Bridge. So the other thing I would encourage is people to use eBird, because it really announces what's being seen all over. And if you get on the rare bird alert, you can see the rare birds that are being seen. And one of the birds they saw in Africa, the wood sandpiper, there was a wood sandpiper in Humboldt, and then last year there was a wood sandpiper down in the desert of Southern California. I'm trying to remember the exact location. It was a preserve in Southern California. We all went down and were able to see it and get some great photos. So
We had one in Solano.
Yeah.
yeah, that was a long time ago, Robin.
Yeah, you can look up to Highway 37, you could have seen that turn. You
Yeah.
could have seen
Jaegers.
Jaegers. You could have seen-
We actually, yeah, 37, the pullout near Cullinan Ranch is amazing for shorebirds. And we actually watched Jaegers chase a black tern and have it regurgitate its food, and the Jaegers took it. So there was one parasitic Jaeger. I'm not sure if the other one was a parasitic or not, but they were chasing the terns there for
Yeah,
several
both of them.
days. Yeah, yeah.
Both along.
So thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you in another month.
Who's on his?
He's on Zoom.